My task is basically to call people's attention to the most dangerous covert operation that's going on at any given time. The greatest danger is now a covert operation around the candidacy of Obama. It's a kind of political coup d'etat going on in the United States with great danger for the world, because the policy represented by Obama is more aggressive, more militaristic, and generally speaking, more catastrophic than anything the neocons had.
There is no military solution in Iraq, and there never was. I will begin to remove our troops from Iraq immediately. I will remove 1 or 2 brigades a month and get all of our combat troops out of Iraq within 16 months.
The president promised during his campaign to end the war in Iraq, but he never said we would leave the Middle East. In fact, he spoke about expanding existing wars and even hinted at new ones.
Senator Barack Obama issued a warning to Pakistan today, saying
he would be prepared to order military attacks against
al-Qaeda targets inside Pakistan, with or without the approval of Islamabad.
The conditions on Pakistan have been that they do their part to fight al-Qaeda and the Taliban in the areas along their border with Afghanistan.
One of the biggest challenges facing the United States right now is to keep Pakistan focused on the fight against the Taliban and al-Qaeda on its western border with Afghanistan. There is a big concern that Pakistan will give up that fight if it has to move its troops to its eastern border with India.
A few weeks after President Obama won the election, a terrorist attack in Mumbai, India is blamed on Pakistan, raising tensions between the two neighbors.
Tensions between the nuclear neighbors have been high since last month's Mumbai attacks, which India blames on Pakistan-based militants. The Pentagon's been urging India and Pakistan to show restraint over fears the finger-pointing could lead to another war between the two.
Now, Pakistan is moving troops away from their border with Afghanistan to focus on its border with India. Conveniently, this may end up justifying the kind of actions the president has been calling for, at a time when Defense Secretary Robert Gates is doubling U.S. troops in Afghanistan. The stage was set for President Obama before he even took the oath of office. Like shadows leading the figure, events were set in motion by his masters to lay a path before him. Of all the aging actors on the crowded stage with our new president, there are many that can claim particular relevance to the president's future war plans, 2 of which are Zbigniew Brzezinski and Robert Gates. 30 years ago, while Barack Obama was just graduating high school in Hawaii, Brzezinski and Gates were busy starting some in the Middle East, and in particular Afghanistan. In January of 1998, Zbigniew Brzezinski was interviewed by a French magazine. When asked about statements in a book by former CIA Director Robert Gates, Brzezinski admitted that both he and Gates were involved in giving covert aid to the Mujahideen 6 months before the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan in 1979. He said that according to the official version of history, CIA aid to the Mujahideen began during 1980, that is to say after the Soviet army invaded Afghanistan, but the reality, secretly guarded until now, is completely otherwise. Indeed, it was July 3, 1979, that President Carter signed the first directive for secret aid. He was then asked if he'd had a desire to provoke the Russians militarily, to which he responded, "We didn't push the Russians to intervene, but we knowingly increased the probability that they would." I'll translate that for you. That was Orwellian doublethink for why, yes sir, I did poke that anthill with a stick. What Brzezinski has admitted to is his role, along with Robert Gates, in provoking a war by proxy with the Soviets and using Islamic extremists to fight the war for them. These actions eventually led to the creation and continuing support of al-Qaeda and the Taliban as CIA assets to be used against the Soviets. In an article published by Spiegel Online about the checkered history of American weapons deals, it was said that the United States supplied Afghan freedom fighters in the 1980s with money and arms for their struggle against the occupying Soviet troops, and that one of the best customers for the CIA back then was Saudi millionaire Osama bin Laden. A BBC article on the origins of al-Qaeda claims that during the anti-Soviet jihad, bin Laden and his fighters received American and Saudi funding, and that some analysts believe bin Laden himself had security training from the CIA. As has been pointed out by the 9/11 Truth movement, there are doubts that bin Laden's Al-Qaeda has actually gone rogue, but is still to this day believed to be an asset of the CIA.
Now, although you have argued that deceptions to the American people may be necessary in order to deal with these enemies, how are we to know how many other terrorist incidents have been state-sponsored false flag incidents, including the largest of one, the attacks of 9/11? How do we know, how do the American people know that 9/11 wasn't staged, wasn't engineered by you, David Rockefeller, the Trilateral Commission, the CFR, and Bilderberg Group, sir? You sponsored Al-Qaeda, sir. You are a criminal.
Oh, sit down.
You sponsored Al-Qaeda. In 1979, you gave him money. That's true. You're a CFR scum. You are CFR New World Order scum. You and David Rockefeller will never have a New World Order.
This London Guardian article, published November 1st, 2001, states that only 2 months before September 11th, Osama bin Laden flew to Dubai for 10 days of treatment at an American hospital, where he was visited by the local CIA chief, according to French intelligence. Another aging actor still in play is Pakistan's Inter-Services Intelligence, or ISI. Even according to the heavily censored Wikipedia, the ISI merged with the CIA in the 1980s. A number of officers from the ISI's Covert Action Division received training in the U.S., and many covert action experts of the CIA were attached to the ISI to guide it in its operations using the Afghan Mujahideen. Now, Indian media is reporting that India has proof that the ISI was involved in the recent attacks in Mumbai.
The White House is watching with growing concern amid reports Pakistan is massing some 20,000 troops along the Indian border. Tensions between the nuclear neighbors have been high since last month's Mumbai attacks, which India blames on Pakistan-based militants.
So with all these old CIA assets still in play, with former spymaster Robert Gates wielding the power of the American military and amassing troops at Pakistan's back door, and with Zbigniew Brzezinski bending the new president's ear on foreign policy, what do you think is going to happen next? The question here is not, are Brzezinski and Gates the kind of men to provoke a war by stealth and proxy, for that much they have admitted to. The question is, what are these men doing in the new president's administration, and do you still believe in change?